So we've got two legends of the sport, legends in their own right, potentially retiring and definitely retiring from the sport of mixed martial arts this week. We'll start off with Brock Lesnar here. Now, Brock Lesnar, as we all know, is an absolute monster. This guy started off in the WWE, kind of translated his skills from there in his wrestling days in college over to the world of mixed martial arts, and generally translated pretty well. He lost some fights, he won some fights. He was never going to be that top talent, that top fighter in the world in the UFC. It just didn't seem to be his path. But what he did do was bring a lot of new casual fans to the table for the UFC and potentially turn them into hardcore fans. He brought the kind of fans that like storylines, right? He brought the kind of fans that are going to follow these guys' stories, and once they find a favorite fighter, they're going to stick with that fighter and support him through everything for the most part. And that's a great thing for the UFC. It was something that the UFC needed. In fact, Brock Lesnar and Conor McGregor, you could arguably say that those two were the ones that kind of ushered in this whole showmanship era, right? The whole era where it's based on a little bit of drama, some, back end stuff, some things outside of the cage that were truly drawing people to their fights. And that was great for the UFC. It brought them great numbers, and Brock Lesnar did a lot for the sport. Now, on the other hand, there were a couple failed drug tests, and he fell for clomiphene, and he's had a history of it in the past. And TMZ actually released an article saying that his retirement, as we all know, it was at a bit of a weird time, that his retirement was because of a drug test by USADA that he took just a couple weeks ago. Now, I want to get into the details of that a little bit further. Even if the man did fail a drug test by USADA, obviously the thought of retiring has been going through his head. I'm a firm believer that once you start thinking about retirement in mixed martial arts, when you're fighting someone in a cage, and you start thinking about retirement, you have one foot out the door, take that next step. There's no reason to go out there and do permanent brain damage. And that's gonna affect the rest of your life when you can avoid it, right? When it's just not something you wanna do. Now, I understand some guys need to pay the bills and it's just what you got to do at some points. But when you're someone like Brock Lesnar, there's no point. He's got all the money he'll ever need in the world. Just based on being Brock Lesnar, right? Being the guy that he is. So there's no reason in the world why this man should keep fighting if he just doesn't feel like it, if he just doesn't feel it's for him anymore. I agree 100% with the decision, and I think it's a little premature for TMZ to be releasing something saying that he, definitely retired because of this test by USADA. We don't have any results from the test. He's been tested 9 times in 2019 by USADA, so obviously the man has been doing what he's supposed to do in the USADA pool. And if he would have failed, if he would have been failing, we would have heard something before now. We would have heard of a suspension. Dana White would have moved on from trying to make the fight with him in DC. There's so many things that would have happened if he had failed before this. So honestly, I think it's just TMZ kind of reaching for a clickbait title. To be fair, TMZ's never been called out on a lie as far as a headline or a story, and if they were, they corrected it. But this is a bit of a reach, right? Obviously, it's just a clickbait title, and that's all it is. There's nothing more to it, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sure it'd be a lot more of a juicy story if Brock Lesnar failed for EPO and Anadrol and Turinabol and clomiphene again, all these different drugs. I just don't think it's the case. Even if it is, the man's retired now. It doesn't matter. He was going to retire before. Let the man retire in peace. He's done a lot for the sport. Respect it. You have to. Let it go. From there, we'll move on to Rory Macdonald. Now, Rory Macdonald had a fight this past Saturday. It was actually during the UFC card as well. He had a Bellator fight in the tournament against John Fitch. Now, in his post-fight interview, by the way, if you all didn't catch that fight, definitely go back and watch it. It was an amazing fight to watch if you like the technical side of mixed martial arts, so definitely go back and watch it. It's worth the minute, or it's worth the time to see. But nonetheless, I want to talk about his post-fight interview in this video. Now, in that interview, he said he didn't really feel like he had the passion anymore that he used to have for the sport. He said it felt like it was kind of a job, like it was a task he had to complete rather than something he loved doing and had a passion to do. Now, that's not something we've ever heard Rory Macdonald talk about, which is why it raises a bit of a concern to me when I hear someone that's been such a legend and such an integral part of the mixed martial arts world throughout the years. I mean, the man's been a professional fighter and we've been watching him fight for 14 years. He had that crazy fight against Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley. I mean, there's countless legends and Hall of Famers that this man has fought and made it through to tell the tale, right? But when you start mentioning, just like I said in the Brock Lesnar portion of this video, when you start mentioning retirement and start mentioning that it feels like a job to you and it feels like something you have to do rather than something you want to do, I've always been the person to tell you to take that next step out the door. There's no need to step in the cage again, especially for someone like Rory. Rory's the type of fighter that throughout the years has been very smart with his money, and the man's made a ton of money. He's always been an intelligent fighter inside and outside the cage. He's not the type of guy that's going to start drama, or he's not your regular Conor McGregor, right? So his family's good to go. He's got money stacked up for them. He's not having to worry about that anymore. But the man, a man like that fights for the passion that he has for the sport and for the love of mixed martial arts and competing against other guys to see who's going to win. When you lose that, it's very dangerous to step it back in the cage to do exactly that, especially when you've got to the point that Rory has in his career where when he steps in the cage now, he's fighting absolute top tier fighters, period. He's not gonna get some guy that's just coming off the streets 0-1 that needs a tune-up fight, or he's not gonna be that gatekeeper for people. I mean, this man fights the best of the best every time he steps in the cage. So it's scary for someone that's been so well respected throughout the community to have those second thoughts and to actually be willing to step back in the cage, especially with Rory. I mean, his next fight's against Neiman Gracie at MSG. That's a crazy fight for someone to take that's kind of considering retiring, right? I don't know, guys. This is something that's a lot deeper than any of us can understand. I mean, I'm not his coach. I'm not him personally, so I can't tell you whether or not he's making the right decision by saying he wants to keep fighting and he's got past that whole sentimental moment where he was second guessing his career. I can't be the one to answer that. All I can do is speculate and tell you that, like, look at Brendan Schaub, for example. When Joe Rogan saw that he had one foot out the door, he brought it up to him, and Brendan Schaub hadn't even mentioned anything about it before. He hadn't even mentioned being ready to retire or not having the same passion for the sport. It was just that obvious, and you kind of saw that in the Rory Macdonald-John Fitch fight as well. He didn't have that killer instinct where he was going to shut your lights off or you were going to shut his off. It just didn't seem like that type of fight. So I hope everything works out well for Rory Macdonald. I've followed his career for probably 10 years at this point. I've been through his ups, his downs, and I've always been a true fan of him, as I'm sure a lot of you have as well. I mean, if you watch him fight and you see him fight and you know a little bit about him, it's hard not to be a fan of this guy. So that's why I wanted to make the video and kind of point the fact out that it may not be the best idea to continue doing what you're doing when your heart's just not in it, Rory. I know you probably won't see this, but I did want to kind of make an update for you guys. It's been like a day later than I usually upload, so I do apologize for that. I got a new laptop, new editing software, and of course a new microphone. Let me know if you guys can hear the difference in the mic, by the way, if you like it better, worse, whatever the case may be. And thanks again for all the support lately as well. It's absolutely blowing my mind. It means the world to me. It means the world to the growth of the channel. So keep doing what you're doing. Thanks again for all the love, and we'll catch you.